Thinking Native, 11 Insights for 2011, with your host Saul Kropman from The Digital Edge.
Hi everyone, my name is Lara Bryant and I'm Chief Strategist at Native. I have been with the group for nearly 2 years and came in really as a client service person, but through the evolution of Stonewall Intelligence grew into the strategy role alongside a few of the other strategists in the business, and I'm delighted and proud to be leading this team into the new future of Native.
And what's the role of that department and your role within it going to be?
Well, really what we see in Native is that strategy does drive the business. We believe digital strategy really is what is under the hood and what the basis of most business strategies should be developed upon. So going forward, we see strategy playing a fundamental and vital role in the business, and certainly working very closely with the creative part of the agency. So a new partnership between strategy and conceptual starting to develop. And this teaming structure we see as the hive mind or the hub that really develops the ideas and concepts that the production team can then execute.
It's a bit of a killer question, and I'd love it if you answered it not in a marketing 101 way, because anybody can look up that definition. But we're talking about strategy here. What is strategy?
I'm so glad you asked it like that, because it's a long time since I did marketing 101. But I think for me, what I see strategy is it's a better way to answer the question as what it's not. And I think what it's not is a document, and it's certainly not reams and reams of very left brain, highly intelligent thinking. It really needs to be the point that intersects a business to shift it and change it. And I always used to use a drawing to explain this, which is you can easily achieve a goal with doing the same thing over and over again, but a strategy is really what changes your business and gets you to a much better result and a much better place.
We've spoken about, in our conversations around the strategy team, about strategy also being something that touches on what used to be called business intelligence. It also involves insights and all of these kinds of things. How do you see that within the strategy department?
Yeah, you're so right. I think just speaking specifically around what digital strategy is, this used to be something that used to sit in the IT department. And what we're seeing through the change in digital and change in technology is that quite often we're brought in to develop a digital marketing strategy. And what this ends up being is looking at business processes, whether that be the way in which the brand interacts at a retail point or the call center. But the strategy is born digital. And clients are becoming wiser to this approach and certainly are starting to include digital agencies like ourselves in the thinking far earlier than before. We've seen this internationally where digital agencies like an agency like RGA that gets brought in to develop new products. They're not a digital agency, they're actually a business strategy agency that happens to have ideas born in digital. And this is certainly our hope and dream at Native, that we can transcend a little niche space called digital strategy and engage with businesses across the broader spectrum. So as I said, we engage at the business strategy level, whether that be a restructuring or looking at business processes, then evolve this into brand strategy and develop that further into communication strategy and into our core area of digital strategy. The other very, very important thing is that the way the web and digital have evolved in the last year, or last 2 or 3 years, we're certainly seeing social media being a crucial part of the strategy. And we are not only saying that strategies are born digital, but they're certainly born social because of the way users interact with brands online and in the digital space.
We've spoken quite widely about various components of the unique digital part of strategy there, but something else that's very important, especially to clients, is how brand strategy and digital strategy fit together. How do you see that?
Well, I think they're one and the same. Digital strategy used to be the little bit that was brought in for those geeky computer guys, but I think what we're seeing now going forward is that a company used to come to us and say, build me a website. Now quite often jokingly we hear, build me a Facebook, and that's really what digital's done to revolutionize brand strategy and digital strategy. it's no longer good enough just to have a standalone brand website. You need to be thinking about how this interacts in the social space and what your presence is like on Facebook, how you allow consumers to interact with your brand, how you allow them to rate your brand. These days, likes and user-generated content are accounting for an enormous amount of brand equity in the social space. And as marketers, we need to be able to measure this and understand this and really quantify it, because that's where brands are being developed within the consumer's user-generated content.
Strategy can't exist without an understanding of context. And obviously, as we're looking forward to 2011 in terms of an industry and also what Native is trying to do within that, there must be key trends that you've got your eye on, and they're going to affect what we do as digital strategists. Any heads up on what those might be?
Well, before I get into kind of revealing a lot of the, I suppose, the secrets and what we might sell on during 2011, I think one of the things that we explore in digital strategy is the way users interact in the digital space. And traditional marketers, whether they use tools like LSMs or AMPs or media measurement tools, are getting quite a skewed view of the way consumers experience the web. It's not gender specific, it's certainly not age specific, and it's most definitely relevant in the South African context is it's not race specific, which were the old traditional marketing ways to segment the market. Users are interacting with digital in a completely different way, and it's based on their level of comfort with the digital space. So really, with that as a basis and an intro to the trend, the one fundamental thing that I really hope we see kicking off in 2011 is mobile. We've spoken about it year in and year out as to what mobile means, and certainly in the South African context, with the amount of people using mobile phones, this is certainly a completely different, exciting, new way to interact with digital content. We're also seeing that being relevant with the explosion of smartphones. I myself know I've had intelligent phones before, but have moved on to a pretty classic smartphone now, and I interact differently with it. I interact with content differently, and I'm browsing the web in a way that I didn't do before. And this, for me, if we see a trend starting to emerge, mobile for me must be top of the list. Something I've already touched on is consumers' ability to generate content. And probably 2 or 3 years ago, bloggers were everything and blogging content was everything. And this user-generated content is something that we touched on in the 2010 trends. But going forward, the power of the consumer through status updates, tweets, likes, and certainly star ratings on a site like Amazon is how they're contributing to the content. And it used to be a full blog, then it was a bite-sized blog update, and now what we're seeing is any site that lacks the functionality where consumers can interact and rate and score is missing something vital. This then links into the social interaction and how they push content to and from these liked sites or these star-rated sites into their social media spaces. So it's no longer just good enough to interact with a particular item and like it and rank it, but you then need to tell your friends about it. So social is really driving and initiating a lot of the way people behave. One of the most exciting things I've seen recently is the Skype integration with Facebook. For me, a person that spends a lot of time on Skype, now having the interface seamlessly joined is a wonderful way of bringing the instant messaging chat function into my social space and seeing what my friends are doing at the same time, whether that be business friends or groups that I like, or my social network. So living within Skype, which I think is something that we will see throughout 2011, the convergence and the merging of different technologies, whether that be chat in Facebook, as we've seen, or the integration of email communication through Facebook, or as in Skype, interacting into the social spaces. So the merging and not making me visit different portals or different sites to talk to people. I've touched on social, and I think it goes broader than social. That's really digital is everywhere, and I would like my hope and dream, I guess, for 2011 is that we really see this start to emerge. We have had a lot of retail clients that are looking at digital, but that's really been in the social or the web space. And internationally, we are seeing huge companies and departments being set up within digital agencies just to focus on the retail experience. So bringing the real life experience of whatever the digital relationship or interaction with the client might be, bringing that to life in the real world. And that's once again this convergence of experiences. So how I experience sitting at home behind my PC to watching a TV commercial to interacting with the brand on the shop floor is becoming joined and seamless, which is, for me as a marketer, the best news ever, because that's really the full integration that we've always hoped for and wished for around digital.
Lara, you've mentioned a whole lot of terms there. So things like digital propensity, understanding how social networks and communities extend beyond just things like Facebook, talking about social content, talking about the merging of social platforms, how digital retail is going to start happening in 2011, spoken about convergence in a general sense. These are all very digital specific terms, but they speak of a much broader involvement that digital now has in every part of the marketing cycle. As far as Native is concerned, does Native mean to challenge the main agencies in providing a lead table kind of strategy involvement?
Certainly, I think long term that would be something that we would want to explore. But for now, our main thrust and focus is post merger is to make sure that Native is what it sets out to be. And that's really where a lot of our focus aims to sit for the first part of next year. We in the old days, and the old days in digital are probably only a couple of months ago, we were brought in right at the end of a process, and as I mentioned earlier, we're asked to build banners, which were just really moving print ads. And what we've been trying to educate clients and partner agencies, and we really do believe that traditional agencies are our partners in the future. We've been trying to educate these parties as to how we can assist them rather than compete with them. So certainly from my perspective and from Native's perspective, collaboration is key for 2011. We need to work with the variety of agencies, whether that be activation or PR or the production companies that generate TV commercials, because we might need the soundbite in a website, we might need a print ad to be shot differently so that we can use it in a digital execution. But more importantly, we want to be included in the thinking up front, because that's really where the magic can happen, where we can leverage the skills across the industry to best benefit the client, and in that offer the integrated campaign or the integrated offering, which I've mentioned. So whether or not that means lead, I don't think so for now, but we are working on our ability to be able to offer brand strategy and the kind of communication strategies that clients have come to expect from traditional agencies. And for now, I think we have plenty to do and a niche and a home in the digital space, and that's certainly what we want to enhance and grow and spend a lot of time educating and developing.
How do you view the transition from Stonewall to Native, and how will it affect clients? Should they be worried? Should they be excited?
Wow, if anything, and maybe I'm prejudiced or biased or whatever the word might be, if anything, they should be delighted. It's probably one of the most exciting things that I've ever been part of, and having met like-minded people who are as passionate about the industry, I think the collection of services that we now offer is superb, and it's far superior to what we were ever able to offer as Stonewall. So if anything, the client is benefiting without having to go and look for another partner agency. They're benefiting because they can leverage the relationship they currently have with Stonewall. And the Native offering, as I said, is far superior. It's not just 1 + 1 + 1 is 3. I really think this is somewhere in the region of 5 or 6 that's the combined companies have brought together. I think also importantly, from a client perspective, is that as Stonewall, we were not specialists in all areas, and I've spoken a lot today about things like mobile and social, and these really are the now for digital strategies. And a company like Brandish brings this strength and this service and this skill into the business in a way that we couldn't have done, or certainly couldn't have ramped up in the same space of time. So of huge benefit to client. It's a very, very exciting partnership, and I'm very privileged to be part of it.
We spoke about how it's not going to terrify clients, how they should be delighted. But if I were to wear a client's hat, I might be looking at this new entity and saying, well, hold on, it used to be that you would strategically advise me on where the best place to go is. Now you've got a whole lot of different divisions, committees, councils, whatever they're going to be called. As a client, I can only assume that you would be strategically pushing me towards something within that business instead of working out what's best for me. How would you answer a client concern like that?
I think that's a fair concern as a client. Alongside that, a concern that we've raised internally, and a flag that we've worked really hard on managing is in the nature of what the merger's brought is size and scale. And we are now we're not just a small business that had the ability to respond in a different way. We are a very big business with the need for structured processes. So that, I think what we've focused on from a value perspective is that Agile is true to who we are as natives, and we need to be able to respond as quickly as we always did. We need to be as personal in the way we service clients that we always did, that we always were, and we certainly just need to allow the background benefits to come through for the client. The client, I would not want them to see a whole lot of services being trotted out just because that was what Native offered. I think strategically we are able to offer in-house services that we weren't able to offer before, and that's the big difference. The client has one client contact, and that remains whatever service they require. Whereas in the past, if they were looking for specialist agencies, they'd have to go and develop those skills themselves. Now we offer that under one roof, and I don't think it would ever be a case of pushing the services that we offered just because we offered them, but really because we believe in them and we believe that they are of client benefit.
You mentioned a lot about clients and how we would address them as an agency, but before you got inside this part of the digital dynamic, you were a client in a previous life. Do you think clients in South Africa are brave enough and knowledgeable enough about digital?
Certainly, if I compare my experience on the client side, we were brave, but probably more accurately, we were ill-informed. And I see more and more brave clients emerging, which is exciting as an agency and exciting as Native. But for now, the clients have access to agencies that are mature, that have developed over time and offer sound thinking. My life as a client, I went out and did what most responsible clients did, and that was build a website. I think after about the third iteration and lots of money being spent on e-commerce solutions and various other fancy back-end systems, I probably had lost more money than and lost brain cells in the process too. As Native, and certainly as the strategy team, our responsibility is not to allow clients to waste their money. And I think that builds further bravery. If clients see the results and they see what their money is getting them, and they see the results, which clearly digital allows them to measure now, they will become braver. And we certainly are. I have the privilege of having many brave, progressive and exciting clients that want to stand out, and that quite often is the brief. I want to be big in digital, I want to stand out, and I want to make a difference, and how can I do it? Which is a very different brief from a couple of years ago.
You mentioned measurement there, and of course digital is probably the medium that is the most measurable, and there are countless metrics that one can apply. Native has an insights team that's dedicated to doing those kinds of things. But that doesn't necessarily mean that clients, even if they're knowledgeable, know what it is they should be looking at, what they should be measuring, what their objectives need to be. How as digital strategists do we help them with that and get them to the right place so that they know what their campaign or website is about?
I think that with digital, the one thing we've said over and over, as you've asked in this question, is that it's measurable. But what exactly do you want to measure? You can measure absolutely everything, and quite often come back with completely irrelevant information, and way too many reports or way too many statistics that don't really make your business better, or your product better, or consumers love you more. So what we try and do in our strategy department is to make sure that we align digital measurement with what the client's overall business objectives are. These need to be seen as part of business strategy, and certainly part of marketing strategy. On a car client, if the main business objective is to sell more cars, logically, I guess, then that's what we need to be doing. We need to be building and developing campaigns and websites and microsites that do just that. And if a leading indicator of car sales are test drives, then that's what we need to be focusing on. I think there's also the softer side of the emotional part of the brand. How do I know if my client likes me more? Well, we measure things like interaction rate, time on site, and conversion rate, which are not scientific or rocket science type measures, but they really do talk straight back into the brand objectives and the business objectives, and ultimately the client's bottom line. And that's our responsibility as strategists, to make sure that the client's bottom line is, benefits from the work that we do.
You used the example of a car client and a measurable item there, which is the number of test drives. We've spoken about retail, and something there might be product sold or feet through the door, or whatever the case is. But those things can't be measured in the digital space because they happen in the real world. So how much of a challenge is that for digital strategy when you're talking to a client about their business objectives and achieving those?
That's a massive challenge. And, I guess we can both smile and nod, because that is really where digital starts to talk into business strategy. What other processes need to be taken into consideration? So the test drive example, what are we doing at dealer level to make sure that the people who do come into the dealership are being treated in the right way? How do we facilitate test drives with the dealers so that the client snaps it up as an offer? That's really digital processes starting to integrate into the real world experience. And our place and our responsibility is to enlighten, or I suppose educate clients as to what they can do to change business processes and really make sure that the business objectives are driven, because digital needs to be supportive and it needs to be leading, but most importantly, as I've said a few times, it needs to be integrated into overall strategy.
Do you think that's manageable? It sounds like on paper it can work, but the changes that clients might need to go to in their business processes can be very challenging.
It is very challenging, and that's really, where your question around are clients ready for this is a key consideration, because a lot of them would probably just want a website. They don't want to be challenged fundamentally, or quite often they believe that the business process is correct the way it is. Where we see this changing is where digital can fundamentally offer them a different way to their business. That is strategy. For me, when digital starts to offer them a different way of achieving better results. And if we achieve that, and if that's the way we start to educate them, then I think we're on track. I don't for a minute think that this is an overnight process, but what excites me and I guess motivates and keeps our team passionate is that when I joined this team a little bit more than a year ago, these kind of conversations weren't happening with clients. Clients were wanting a banner campaign, and I don't even think they used the word campaign. They were asking for banners, which were just, as I said, moving print ads. And to think how far their language has come and how far they are prepared to go to invite consumers and ourselves into their business is quite fundamental and inspiring.
You've spoken there about a progression over the last couple of years or even the last couple of months with clients' knowledge and understanding. Elsewhere in these series of interviews, we've spoken a lot about the maturity of the South African industry, especially in a global context. What do you see as the main strategic challenges there in terms of educating clients or in terms of what the South African context holds for those clients?
I've spoken a little bit about the maturing of the industry. I don't think the digital industry, whether they be a bunch of computer whiz kids, had the weight or the experience to back up some of the suggestions. Not that they weren't intelligent suggestions and not that they weren't valid, but I don't think they carried as much weight for the client. Over time and through great marketing and I guess some propaganda through Mark Zuckerberg, etc., these whiz kids have earned a place and a space in the conversation and have relevant and valid information to offer to a client. So I think that maturing has happened from a number of different aspects. But most importantly, I think it's happened where clients in their own real life experiences realize how they interact with brands. And the education process is multiplying because of their own experiences. The web is not happening in isolation just for their business. It's happening in their home lives. Their kids are telling them things. Their wife is shopping online. Their husband might be checking for a new car online. Things that were never readily available. So I think the whole context of the digital age is not just in a business context. The digital age is truly of us and upon us, and that is assisting in the maturing and the readiness for the kind of ideas that we're coming back with.
You mentioned the whiz kids that perhaps started out the whole digital agency world, and we spoke a bit about whether agencies from the digital domain have earned the right to sit at a client's lead table. Do you think Native is mature enough to be talking to clients on that kind of level?
I certainly do, and I don't say that lightly. I think what has happened through each company's journey is they've explored that maturing process. None of us, certainly at the leadership level, are young, wet behind the ears, inexperienced people. We're all people that have had a history in our particular field, and we certainly have experience to our names. So I think that combination of age, wisdom, and experience makes us quite a formidable team. I think the other very, very important thing, and it's a cultural thing that I've seen ever since I joined Stonewall, is that I don't think any of us are afraid of the whiz kids, and we're certainly not afraid of inviting them in. Because if I look at the team we have in the business, they probably are predominantly under 25, and they are as respected and as invited into every conversation. They're able to offer their opinions, but they have the support and structure of people that have, I guess, been around the block and tried some of those things themselves. So the enthusiasm and the excitement of young ideas is very welcomed, and certainly part of the tribal nature that we speak a lot about in our culture.
You've mentioned the extended tribe there, which, as you say, is a very young tribe, but led by experienced chieftains, or whatever we're going to call the native council bosses. But you raise a very interesting point there with the under 25 whiz kids, and part of the reason that these people are there is because technology changes so fast, platforms change so fast. Social didn't really exist a couple of years ago. How, from a strategy point of view, do we keep up to speed with that? Because you need the benefit of age and wisdom and those kinds of things and experience, but you also need to be talking the language of whatever new technology there is.
Yes, that's a valid point and a valid consideration. I think part of the culture that we've tried to create within the business is one of learning and one of sharing. So it's no good if someone sits with a great idea and they sit in isolation. That coming together as a team is vital, and being able to share and most importantly, as I mentioned, having the respect to listen to one another's ideas is very important. Quite often the greatest ideas might come in passing, and they might come from the youngest person in the team, but that's almost irrelevant, because the team members generally are encouraged to be up to date, up to speed, and there's no barrier to entry in this market. So whether the idea kind of generates from someone in the business's 6-year-old child who's interacting with an iPad in a different way, that's an idea that's generated and respected and brought to the table. So I think there's, not that we have child labor, I just want to make that point, but the ideas and the wisdom, I think, are rapidly shared, and the process of osmosis is encouraged.
If you could land the dream strategy project or dream client, or however you'd like to answer the question, what would it be? What would you really like to sink your teeth into strategy-wise in 2011?
Well, first of all, before I start dreaming and drift on to that ideal brief and ideal client, I just want to thank you for facilitating this. I guess for me, the ideal brief would really come from a brand that I wanted to work on more than anything else. I have a history and a passion for brands and consumers, so being allowed the opportunity to dig into a brand strategy for a brand that I was passionate about would be probably the best thing. Alongside that, a client that was pushing the digital boundaries is always important. I spent a lot of time in my previous role developing the relationship with the ad agency, and one of the things I always used to ask them to do was to go and win me some awards, not because I wanted to win awards or it was important for the company I worked in, but it was important for them, and it was important for them to be recognized. And I think too often the service transaction happens and the relationship is forgotten. So the ideal brief and the ideal client would involve a deep, meaningful relationship with that client, and that's really part of our vision for Native. We want to develop meaningful relationships with our clients and their consumers, and digital is the perfect way to do that. So a brief that was digital, a brief that was about a brand, and a client that was pushing the boundaries and wanted to do innovative, groundbreaking work would be the absolute perfect. And I'm back from leave in the middle of January, so if that brief's on its way, let me know.
Thinking Native is a part of the Making of Native, a 4-month journey into the making of South Africa's newest full-service agency. For more insights with Native's leading thinkers, visit us on www.native.co today or follow us on